And one thing I learned is, I am an entrepreneur. And nothing is going to change me. We were in India. My wife was learning Buddhism, and I was asking the fishermen how much money a day they make, if there's any way they can buy new boats and more boats and do this. You don't change. I don't change. That's what we are. And there is part of this that it's good. It's good that that's what you are. But also there's part of it that it's bad. I would like to say that I choose to be an entrepreneur, but I'd be lying. I don't choose. This is what, and I bet most of you are the same way. If tomorrow being an entrepreneur is a bohemian thing that doesn't give you any money, you will still be an entrepreneur. If all of a sudden the world changes in such a way that to make money you have to be a violinist, you will still be an entrepreneur. You won't be a violinist. And there's something very powerful in realizing that you don't choose that. That's what you do. You are stuck with it. So that's the first thing I learned is I'm stuck with this forever. The second thing I learned, or that the trip helped me realize, is that first I was very proud of being an entrepreneur. I was very proud of being a young entrepreneur. It all became of my DNA, my job description. And when I turned 30, I didn't know how you are a not so young entrepreneur. And then when I had some money, I truly had a big conflict between being an entrepreneur, which I believe is maximizing your passion, your work, the energy you put into something, versus having some capital that you have to take care of. All of a sudden, you're also on the other side. You are the ugly guys I hated, which are the investors. I don't like being an investor. They are the bad guys. But all of a sudden, I am one. And no, you are the one nice investor, Bill. I was so lucky to have you. He never asked to be on the board of any of those mean things. But somehow in the trip, I realized that the one thing the one most valuable thing, doesn't matter how much money I have, it doesn't matter how much money you have. I think by far the most valuable thing we have is our time. If we are a young entrepreneur, the one thing we have to look at very careful how we want to invest is the next 20 or 30 years of our professional lives. Not very many people have the luxury in the world to think, what do you want to do with the next 20, 30 years of your life? There is also, I think this is true philosophically, but if you are like Santi, this is true mathematically too. I mean, it's the power of compounding. You know, it's unstoppable. So if you, instead of doing something at chunks of years, instead of thinking at 2, 3, 5 years, you really do something for 30 years. That's a lot more valuable than whatever capital or even whatever idea, whatever else, any other asset you might have. And it's important. You have 20, 30 years in front of you, some of you more. And I think it is almost, once you are an endeavor entrepreneur with a company, with that kind of outlook in front of you, it's almost your responsibility to look at it with that kind of time frame. Sailboats go very, very slow. You spend a lot of hours doing watch in the middle of the night, in the middle of the ocean. And one of the things I learned from a business, from the point of view of an entrepreneur, is that I should value that time more than many other things I have. And sort of tied to that, and I know that this is, like Americans like to say, arguable. The third and last thing I learned is Andy and Santi mentioned today a couple of times, talked about me like a serial entrepreneur. And I know they say it as a compliment. But I don't think it is. I don't take it as a compliment. I think it's a mistake, and it's one that I would like to remedy. I think that the way in which we create most value is by doing the same thing for a very long time, by sticking with it, by growing with it, by changing with it, by taking it to the next stage, the way Linda is doing with Endeavor. I know this can be, very arguable. I know that a lot of people might totally disagree with this, but I would feel very bad if, in front of a crowd of endeavor entrepreneurs, you are a very select group of endeavor. I think entrepreneurs in general are lucky to have gotten there to a point where they have a company, are growing, and then to be selected as an endeavor entrepreneur. You guys have something in you, something in your companies, and it would be a pity if, from my example and the example of others, you dream of selling your company. I think that would be a pity. I think that again, when we look at people like Michael Dell, who was talking this afternoon, I don't know anyone who has created more value for their customers, for their employees, for their shareholders, for the communities they live in, than Michael Dell by doing several things. I know some people who have created more value than Michael Dell has by doing one thing very well. But I don't know any serial entrepreneur who can create more value than. So my last advice to you is business-wise, I think it pays to be monogamous. And it's the same thing, you can go ahead and in a few years sell your company for a lot of money, go around the world in a sailboat, come back, and then you can tell me, you know what, Wences, you were right, I regret selling it, or you can believe me.